Good afternoon, everybody. This is May 6th, and this is the next segment of Next Level Living. And we're working on a series called Tell Your Story series. And the last one we did was on broken pieces. And I just want to thank these ladies for their courageous testimonies that we pray will help someone. And the purpose is to let you know that you're not alone in your situation and in your circumstance. So out of the stories that was told between the four of us, hopefully there is someone that can relate and get some how-tos on how to move to the next level of your broken pieces. Hopefully you were able to identify some of the things that cause your brokenness so that you can now work towards the next level, leaving those things behind and looking for those things that are in front of us. So today, with our part of this series, Tell Your Story series, is no respect of person. So the scripture God gave me on this one, it says, "For there is no respect of person with God." That's Romans 2:11. For God does not show favoritism. For God shows no partiality, no arbitrary favoritism. With him, one person is not more important than another. And that's all out of Romans 2, verse 11. So the context of this is in Romans 2 is when Paul was talking to the church about they had split each other in divisions. I'm following Apollo, I'm following Paul. And Paul would let them know with God, there is no respect of person. Apollo waters, I give you the word, Apollo waters, and then God, he does the growth, the germination, and and cultivates the person. So we all have a role, and that's what these ladies bring, and their perspective and their stories is their stories and their gifts. Miss B is beauty. This is the limited icon millennium, and over here is the healthcare, but they have other layers to them, and that's what they presented in their story. So today we're going to do the same thing in telling our stories, and I pray that it helps someone go to the next level in their lives. So I'm going to tell, the scripture that's out of Romans 2:1, it says, "Therefore you have no excuse or justification, every one of you who hypocritically judges and condemns others. For in passing judgment on another, you condemn yourself. Because you who judge from a position of arrogance or self-righteousness are habitually practicing the very same things which you denounce." In other words, when we talk about someone else, if you point a finger at someone, you got four pointing back at you. There is nobody that's perfect, so we all got issues and problems that we have to deal with. So we can't judge our sisters. We can't say, well, she oughta, because that's a judgment. You should, that's a judgment. We're all in different levels of our spiritual growth. So therefore, we cannot judge one another. So I'm going to give you a story about how God was no respecter of person with me in my testimony. I had a desire to travel when I was in high school. I had an opportunity, and my curiosity was piqued when I was taking French class, and my French teachers wanted me to be an exchange student, and my mother said no. That was too far for her baby to go, so no. But that was still a desire in my heart, and we know that God's word said, "I will give you the desires of your heart." So I just went on after that and kept working and in project management and different IT positions that I had along the way. And in 2007, God said yes. But the time from I graduated in 1972 to 2007 was 35 years. But he doesn't give you what you desire until he prepares you for it. So during that time, it was preparation. There was life going on with marriage and children, working a career, learning, going to school, learning how to do technology from development into project management. It was a path that I took to get to that place. So when I got to 2007, working for an airline company, I started out in IT. I ended in IT, but I started out in IT in a department that was called customer care. That was just a contract for the summer. And then by that fall, I was brought in as a contractor uh, for what we called tech ops. I was a data analyst. And being a data analyst, I told God one day, look, I can't take this no more. I am tired of all this politics and all this kind of stuff. And I was walking across the bridge to the parking lot, and the Holy Spirit stopped me in my tracks and said, all this praying you do every day, you're not going to wait and see what I'm going to do? So I said, okay. And I was working as an interim commodity manager when a young lady came on board and said, you need to be a commodity manager. I want you to shadow me. And during that time, Delta was going through a bankruptcy. So they had put a freeze on hiring everything. But I was going on trips with her as her protege. And I had put in for a position in a department called onboard services, and everybody was telling me there's a freeze on hiring, you're not gonna get that job. So I'm like, okay, I got Jesus. I'm not gonna worry about what man says. So I'm in Washington, the state of Washington, on a business trip, and I had put in for that position. I interviewed for it, and they were blowing up my phone because people was departing the company at that time like a mass exodus. So I had about 12 messages I went on the trip so quick, I didn't have a chance to turn on my out of office to say I was going to be out on business. So the manager I interviewed with was just blowing up my phone saying, I hope you're still here. We want to make you the offer. And when I got back, I called him. That was an increase about 12% in my pay. And I was able to begin to travel internationally. So I traveled internationally from 2007 to 2015. God worked that thing out where I didn't have to pay a dime to travel. 33 international cities. And that's what he does. So that's why I gave you the timeline of 35 years, because he knew I wasn't ready to do it right out of high school. But so when he got me prepared for it, because every skill that I learned in between that time was preparing me for what I was going to do as I traveled, which was facilitate teaching technology. So he gave me the technology skill, he gave me the teaching skill, and then he gave me the platform in which to do it on, which was travel business class, 4- and 5-star hotels, all paid for. That's what he does. So it's not about the time. It's not about getting it right now. It's about when he knows you're prepared for it. And I always look at God like the father or the parent that we are to our children. We don't give them everything they want when they want it because they're not ready for it. And he knows the same thing about his children. So when you're ready, you got a child want to learn how to drive at 10, you're not going to give him the keys of your car. So when that child is ready, you take him and you prepare him for it. You go through the driving classes or driving school or whatever, and then you prepare them for understanding that that car is not a toy. It's a deadly, it really is a weapon. So they had to learn to respect the car. They had to learn how to make sure they weren't all leaning back like my son started out driving all lean. Boy, sit up. You got to see the road. You can't be all relaxed and stuff. You got to be on point. You got to be a defensive driver. And once they understood the importance and safety of driving a car and learning the rules of the road, then he was able to be let go to drive by himself. But first he had to change his mindset, and he had to understand the rules of the roads and the laws that's associated with it. So that's what God does. So my point is that he did it for me. He's doing it for you. He's no respecter of person. He's preparing each and every one of us for that path, that destiny that's all ours. No one has the same path. That's why we can't look at things in a box and say, you can't be in a cloned. This person did healthcare, so she's making money, so I'm gonna go healthcare. This person is doing IT, so I'm gonna go IT. They make the money there. This person is an entrepreneur in her business, and she's doing hair. I go to cosmetology school and I'll do hair and I make money. No, that's not your path. because that won't work for you. What worked for everybody else will not, in most cases, work for you. And if it does, if you do get the position, the entrepreneurship and the business and all that, and it's not your path, you're miserable. Because it's not, if you, I can do IT with my eyes closed because I love it. I can do teaching because I love it, because I believe in people building people. And everybody, I came to find out, don't have that ability because it's not their lane and it's not their path. So that's why I say he wants to develop your talents, your strengths for your journey and your purpose and your destiny. And it is, at the end of the day, all about serving others. If in your capacity, you're not in it to serve others, or you can do this thing without being so much concerned about the money, because that's the passion and the joy you get out of doing it, seeing someone smile. Every time I went on a trip, my prayer was that I was able to make sure that when I left there, they had the skill sets they needed to do their jobs. And if any way that I can make it better, I would always do a survey at the end of my training so they can let me know what could have gone better, what they needed help with, improving on. So that way I can come back and maybe do a webinar and fill in the blanks if necessary. But most of the time, I learn from each training how to make it better and present information to them, so that even with the language barriers, some was visual learners, you have to know your audience. And whatever industry you're in, you got to know exactly who you're dealing with. So that means paying attention to your audience. In your business, you call them clients. You got to pay attention to your clients. So in Tay's business, in the project management construction business, she got to pay attention to the people she's serving, so that she knows that she's meeting all of their needs. So at the end of the day, there is no respect of person with God. And so these are my how-tos. If God has ordered my steps to my destiny and purpose by putting my gift of teaching before men in his timing and season, he will do the same for you. So how-to step number 1 is take time. Be still. Spend that quiet time with God and ask him, what are my next steps? And if you wait for the answer, he'll give it to you, and he'll lead you to it. So you devise a strategy. You want to write down what events play over and over and over again, the good ones and the bad ones, because you want to be able to devise a strategy of change for the bad habits that you have. And then you want to devise a plan for the good events, because the good events tend to be the desires of your heart, which is Psalms 21:2. He said, you have given him his heart's desire, and you have not withheld the request of his lips. And Selah just means think about that. And then step 2 is search the scriptures to align the identified events. Pray over them and pray over your life. Declare and proclaim the promises of God daily until they're down in your spirit, down in your heart and in your spirit mind. Psalms 21:2 says, may he grant you your heart's desire and fulfill all of your plans. That's what he intends to do. But we got to stay connected and stay aligned with him. And the scriptures are the way we do that, because he speaks to us and our conditions and circumstances right where we are when we spend time with him in the word. And step 3 is know that the seeds are planted. You have to continue to water them with the word of God and trust God, which means wait patiently for the seeds to germinate and be cultivated by God via the Holy Spirit. And that's, he said in 1 Corinthians 3:6 that I planted, Apollos watered, but God all the while was causing the growth or the increase. 35 years, and that's what he was doing. The seed was planted, and all the while, even though I didn't know it, that's what he was preparing me for. He was germinating that seed, cultivating that seed until it came time for harvest. And then the final step is continue to spend that daily quality time with God and listen for that still small voice. that will guide you through the season of planting until the harvest is manifest. Proverbs 16:9 says, a man's mind plans his way as he journeys through life, but the Lord directs his steps and establishes them. He establishes your plan, and when he works something out and he orchestrates it, it's perfect. And that's why I say I didn't have to pay a dime for 7 years and traveling to 33 international cities. That's what he'll do for you. He's no respecter of person. So that's my story. So now I'm going to turn it to Miss Deborah over here and let her tell you her story. Miss Deborah.
Good evening, everybody. As Miss Pat said, we are on the subject of no respect of person. And God has no respect of person when it comes to blessings. A lot of times we get in an off season of our lives. Things may not be going the way we want them to go. We've lost a job. We've had adversities to come. But being in the healthcare field, one of the things I've found in looking at claims and just dealing with healthcare since 1994, and just over the years especially, most of a lot of illnesses and sicknesses that we go through are just unresolved issues that we have, baggage that we're emotionally and spiritually carrying. And that causes a lot of illness. There's a lot of sickness because we just aren't emotionally and spiritually whole. Because with this reality TV and with the world being the way it is, sometimes as a believer, sometimes you sit back and you say, well, I'm trying to do everything right. And I see people living any kind of way, and they're driving the car they want to drive, they're living in the house they want to live in. Well, what about me? But God shows no respect of person. But a lot of times what we need is healing. We need an internal healing because God does move even in our off season. I can remember coming into healthcare in 94 and then having to come out for some years and do call center work and different type of customer service work and wanting to get back into the healthcare industry, and it just never seemed like it worked. I had to take all of these jobs, and then the companies were folded, and I kept losing a job to the point where I didn't even put anything on my desk because I never knew if I was going to make it to lunch. So I said, okay, God, what is this? I didn't realize at that time that God was trying to show me endurance. He was trying to teach me endurance. Even though you're losing jobs, if every job I had was related to the healthcare field, just not the field that I wanted to be in. And so I ended up taking a temp position with the company where I got into provider relations, and the day that my assignment was supposed to end, the day before that, they end up firing a young lady. And because I had worked along with the young lady who was the provider relations specialist and helping her improve the process within the company, they automatically moved me in. There were other people that had more time there, but because I had worked with the young lady before she left and before they got ready to move this other person out, I knew the process so well and had already set up a strategy for how to improve the numbers that they just automatically moved me into the position. It wasn't even a question. So I got back into healthcare. I got into a better job. I got into something that took me to another level in healthcare, but I just did my due diligence. I went in, I worked, I learned the job, I worked with other people, improved the process, and God just showed me favor and moved me up. I lost that job, and losing that job, several different jobs again, going through that same field and that same road of losing jobs. But see, I had already been through that lesson, so God just taught me how to persevere and keep going. So I ended up getting blessed with another provider relations job back in 2014. And that job came after a work injury. I had gotten hurt at a company I was working for. So in the process of going through all of that, I said, God, I'm at a stale point again. What is this? What am I doing? And it wasn't that Deborah was doing anything. It's life. But you got to keep God before you. So I just continued to praise and worship God and stay in his word and stay before him. And when I end up settling the case, I forgot that when you settle the case, you have to relinquish your unemployment. But God had already worked that thing out to where I had a job that paid almost double, So when I went to the closing table to settle my case, I already had a job in the field that I wanted to get back in, paying more money. And now this job, instead of being in the office, I was able to be in the field. And he also worked it out. And what was crazy was the person that hired me till today does not know how my resume got on her desk. And she told me, she said, had I looked your resume up in the system, I probably would have never called you because of the gaps in employment. She said, but your resume ended up on my desk some kind of way. That's how God does. He has no respect of person. So staying before him and staying in his word, and even in my frustrations, I talk to God, and it's okay to talk to God and cry out to God and let God know how you feel. But you have to sit back and listen and watch what he's doing, because he's doing something in that. And so he's just been elevating me and moving me forward. And now I'm in PR after another layoff, not making as much money. However, he's giving me now a platform that's a lot bigger, and the benefits behind it are a lot bigger. So now the vision that I have for myself, I'll be able to do it now where he's placed me. But this time, in my seeking God, in between my transition, I learned to listen. We pray, we talk to God a lot about a lot of things, but sometimes we don't sit and we don't listen. And I sat some days and I would just get up and just thank God for another day and just spend the day listening. I wouldn't ask for anything. I would just spend the day listening. And it was amazing how God put me in front of people that poured into me and that told me things. And the job that I have, he actually showed me that I would get the job. And the whole time I was laid off, I never missed a beat. Checks were coming from places that I didn't even realize. I'm like, I get another refund check for that? I thought I owed you, but okay. And IRS, really? I thought I owed you too. But he just had checks and blessings coming. And he just so did that thing to where I was able to maintain myself. And the place that hired me again, actually, I found out later on, chose someone else. That person took another position. And I was able to get in that position. And within my 3 or 4 months, I've been able to accomplish so much that has not been accomplished, and to be able to help the team to grow. So God has no respect of person when it comes to his blessings. Just because you're in an off season or things may not be the way you think they are, God still blesses. The key is to keep him first. Give thanks in all situations. And to also, not always, it's good to speak to God, but sometimes sit down and listen, because God is always talking, but we have to silence those voices and get rid of the distractions to hear what he's saying. He's always talking to us. So if you stay that course, no matter where you may find yourself, trust me, just like we see these people on TV, and again, we don't know how people are getting blessed. Just because they drive in a Bentley don't mean it came from Jesus. So we have to remember that. But if you stay the course with God, I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. So not only does God bless you, he blesses your seed. Hope that helps. Love you.
All right.
Very good.
That's very good. That's Miss Deborah's perspective. So now we're gonna have this millennium. You know, she's what, 20, 22? But she got a story to tell. So Miss Alante, Miss Limitless here. Tell your story.
Ooh, hello. So I'm going to go back to high school. So I went to the #1 high school in Georgia, Gwinnett School of Math, Science, and Technology, but I didn't want to. When I was young, I wanted to go to other high schools that my friends were going to, continue being on the dance team and all these different things, but God said no. He had other plans for me. So I went through that high school, and that's where I discovered engineering. And I kept that love and passion all throughout college. And so in college, I had plenty of internships. I had co-ops. I had different experiences inside and outside of the classroom. I was involved in pretty much everything that I could be involved in. But when I got to the end of my college career and it was time for me to graduate, you would think that I had all these different opportunities lined up, and I knew where I was going after that, but I had no clue. I didn't have any offers. I didn't have anything. I had prospects, but they all fell through after about a couple of weeks after graduating. And so I knew that upon graduating college, I wanted to do project management, but in graduating college and being a recent college graduate, you don't just jump into project management. You don't hear about that. You have to have a couple of years of experience. You have to know what it is, what project management is, because you're responsible for all those different projects. They all come back to you. You are the owner of all those different things. And so being so young, everyone was hesitant, and me and my interest in pursuing that career, but I wasn't going anywhere else. I knew that that's what I was destined to do, and I wasn't going to settle for that. So I spent the next 4 months just waiting. Everyone told me, go take a part-time job. I was into fitness, so they told me, go be a personal trainer, go do all these different things. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to put my time and energy in a place that I'm not okay with, that I don't want to do. I want to wake up and be happy and love what I'm doing. And so I decided to wait. And so in those 4 months, I expanded my brand, The Limitless Icon. I found out that I wanted to be a holistic life coach. I found out so much more about myself. I fell deeper in love with myself. I started just writing. I discovered my passion in writing. I discovered all these different things in that short period of time. And then at the end of those 4 months, I said, okay, I need to start working and I need to start being serious about my career, but I don't know where to go. And so I started reaching out to my different connections. And so I applied to this one company. I had a friend who worked there, and she sent me some information about an external position. And I applied, and it was for an office administrative role. Immediately, I got a call from the HR, and she said, what are you doing? Why are you applying for this position? You have an engineering degree, but you're applying for an office role. Let me tell you about these two positions that we have in our company and apply for that. And so I looked over it, and one of them was a virtual construction engineer. I was used to that. I did that in college. Another one was project management. I was hesitant because I applied for project manager roles aside from that one, and I didn't get those. And so I applied, and they brought me in, and I went through a series of interviews and testings, and so I ended up getting it. And so to me, that was just a wake-up call that, hey, all of that waiting, all of that not settling, it all paid off, because you know what you're destined for. God knows the plans that he has for you. They're plans to prosper you, not to harm you. And so as long as you keep your head first and you don't let anything get in the way, you have tunnel vision, you can achieve everything that you've ever wanted to, as long as that lines up with what God has planned for you. And so when I started working, I came into the workplace, and immediately I knew that I would have all of these different limitations on me because I'm working in the construction industry. I'm young, I'm Black, and I'm a female. That's already something that's just doesn't quite fit the standard in the construction industry, but I mean, I knew what I was getting myself into, so I didn't let that affect me or stop me at all. And so I walked in, and it was an adjustment. So now I'm working with nothing but white men all around me, and so now I have to adapt, and I know that everything will be calculated from the moment that I walk into a room to the moment that every word that I say is calculated and documented. Everything that I do is monitored. And so I have to keep that in the back of my head, because I'm not just representing myself anymore. I'm representing a community behind me. I'm leading, I'm paving the way for young women who wants to be in my shoes, and not even women, but anyone who wants to be in my shoes who's told, no, you can't do this for whatever reason. I'm that person, so I have to keep that in mind every single day, and that keeps me going forward. And so being a recent college graduate and going into project management, I don't know what the world has for me. I don't know what God has in store for me, but I do know that I'm destined for greatness. And so, I mean, I take opportunities as they come, and I know that God has equipped me with everything that I could possibly have to make those dreams, to make those ideas, those thoughts into life, and bring those things and manifest them. And aside from that, aside from starting my career, I've been a part of this professional organization, National Society of Black Engineers, since 2013, since I was a freshman back in college. And I wasn't really active until I went to our annual convention last year, and that's where I discovered the magic of NSBE, of having all of these powerful Black engineers together in one room, collegiate and professionals, all together in one space for a weekend. That alone is powerful, and there's so much magic in that room, and that's when it hit me that I need to be a part of this on a bigger level. And so I graduated last year, and I didn't know what the next steps were, aside from being a part of NSBE on a professional level. And so I went to the convention this year for no other reason but to meet and network. And so that's when I discovered the world of professional membership. And so I met some professionals in the Atlanta chapter. And so I talked with them about, I didn't know anything about the professional side of NSBE back when I was in college, and I had an issue with that. I feel like we should make that transition smoother from a collegiate level to professional level, and we should know what all that holds. And so I wanted to kind of change that, because I knew that I had plenty of friends who were graduating soon who loved NSBE and wanted to keep that passion going past the years beyond graduation, but they didn't know how. They didn't even know where to start. And so in talking with these professionals during the conference, they jokingly said, "Hey, do you want to be a part of the board?" In my mind, I said, "Yeah, right. I just became a professional member not even a couple of months ago. It was just that month." And so that kind of put a bug in my ear, but I kept, I came back to Atlanta and I kept going with my life. And it was about a month later, I received an email saying that they had 2 open positions on the Nationals board. And so one of them was a direct reflection as to what I wanted to do inside of NSBE and how I wanted to change things. And so I said, okay, I just became a professional member. Can I do this? And I started looking over all of the different guidelines and the requirements. I didn't meet them. You had to be a professional member for at least 1 year. You had to have previous NSBE leadership. I didn't have any of that. I just knew that my drive and my passion for NSBE and for bringing all of these powerful people together was so strong that I would just go hard for NSBE with or without an official role. But I talked with the current or the previous professional chairperson, and he said that we have the ability to exempt those requirements as we feel the need to. So go ahead and apply. And so I applied, and I had an interview a couple of days later. And they invited me to go to their transition meeting, which was last weekend in Virginia. And so that's when they were bringing in all of the new roles, all of the new leadership positions in, and they were kind of making that transition period. And so I was just kind of there to meet everyone on the Nationals board and the Professionals board, and to get a full understanding of how NSBE works on a national level. And so I met all of these different people, and I came as an unofficial member. And so the chair, he wanted to appoint me, but of course I had to be voted in. And so when I came back this past Sunday, I got an email about 4 days later saying, "Hey, you were voted in and now you're on the board." And so now it's just like, wow, I defeated all of these different odds, and now I'm here, and now it's just like, this is where my work truly begins. I'm the youngest person. I'm not sure if I'm the youngest person ever who's been on the board, but I'm only 22. I just made that transition from collegiate to professional members. Not many students do that, and not many students do that in their first year of graduating. But here I am. I'm a young Black female project manager in the construction field. I'm on the National Professionals Executive Board. I'm only 22, and I know that I have so much in store for me, but that scares me, but I don't allow that to hold me back from anything. And so, my takeaways are, when God says move, you move. You don't settle because you're scared of what could happen. You're scared of success. That's what a lot of millennials are. That's what we fear. We know that we want to reach this goal, but we're so scared, and we have all these different things in our mind that are telling us that we can't do that. But you have to defeat your mind, and you have to know that this is what God has planned for you. You go for it, and you know that you're going to be okay because God has already prepared the path for you. All you have to do is walk on that path and take those steps. And so that's what I did, and that's what I'm doing. And I'm not sure what my next steps are, but I know that I'm ready for it. So That's my that's my story. But I will now pass it over to Miss Belinda.
All right, Miss B.
That was so good, so inspiring.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
Doing more than 22
What?
days and I've
Yes.
been 46 years.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love the vulnerability of saying, I don't know. I love that what God is doing within our group is allowing the stories that come forth to be authentic. And in the realness of the authenticness, hopefully connecting with those that you can see a glimmer in our stories of where you are or where you may have been and the hope that lies from that. In the last Tell Our Story series, The Broken Pieces, I talked about the complications that I didn't want to confront in my life because I didn't like confrontation. But sometimes the confrontation is the best thing. A lot of times it's the best thing because it makes you move one way or the other. And in doing that, I found myself gleaming back on the thing that I felt even as a kid. Entrepreneurship was something that was like planted in me. I didn't have anybody around me that talked about it. I didn't have an example of it in terms of growing up, seeing it, and it being in the forefront of the family conversation. It was actually the very opposite of that. It was graduate from high school, go to college, get a job, work the job, get married, have the kids, the white picket fence, the dog, retire, you're good. It didn't fit me. I felt strange in that I couldn't relate to that story. And so here in graduating from high school, top of the class, there were so many expectations on doing it the way that it had always been done, that when I did not do that, I could see the disappointment in those around me. Not only my parents, but my church members, the pastor, aunts and uncles, and everyone that their semblance of what was successful lied within me doing it the way that had always been done. And so there was my first experience of brokenness, because now that confrontation, that moment of it's not quite going the way it should go, it happened, and I really didn't know what to do with that. But I kept on living. Thank you so much, because it brought me back to understanding. I kept on living. And in that, God connected me into the beauty industry, and it felt good. Going to visit a college friend who had gone to cosmetology school, sitting there all day long. I went to have lunch with her, and I stayed all day long. I looked in every corner. I was excited. I didn't know what God was going to do with that. I just knew that it was a connection beyond anything I'd ever felt before. And in that moment, I was like, I don't know what am I going to do with this, because I can't go home and tell my mom I don't want what they want. So I continued on working, putting myself through school. I was in college, and I got robbed. South DeKalb Mall. In the middle of the night. Scared me out of my mind. Then, if that wasn't enough, someone took the lug nuts off of my car. So when I was driving home, wheels went one way, car went another way. Subtle messages from God. I need you to do what I asked you to do, because you're still trying to do it your way over here. You want to go on and you want to finish, and I have told you, I have shown you what it is I want you to do. Sitting there one night, because the chain on the door at the mall wouldn't come down, I couldn't leave the store. As I'm sitting on the floor, huddled behind it, because I'm here waiting on somebody to come and let this chain down, that wasn't a safe place to be when you're alone. You are a woman alone. They could come in and want to take the money or take the clothes, because remember, I've already been robbed. And I'm like, Lord, okay, I'm tired. I got up, and the next day I put my resignation in. I went to my mom. I said, Mom, if you'll just let me stay home, I'm going to go back to beauty school. And in that, I just need to have a place that I can be comfortable. I know you want me to go 4 years. I finished 2 years in college. I know you wanted me to go. I need to try this. And from that moment, it was as though there was a key that just unlocked my future. And from that moment, I took off running. No, there were times that things didn't go well. There were times that, it was a struggle. There were times I made some horrible mistakes. Single mother, then a divorcee after getting married. Lost salons because didn't pay IRS or let somebody else handle the business. There were a lot of setbacks. But along the path, what God did, He directed my path, that when I would make a mistake, as long as what Deborah was saying, you stop and you listen to God and you ask Him for His wisdom, His knowledge, and His understanding, He will direct your path back to that path to get you on. And the blessings that came from being able to be in a field that brought such joy, such passion, was that those things that I prayed for years before, traveling and seeing the world and experiencing new things, through the beauty industry, it unfolded as though it was breathing. He guided me into understanding you're a teacher. So what I was going to college for to teach, thinking that I was going to be in high school teaching children, I do that in the beauty industry. But the passion that comes from that, it is joy. It is great joy to be able to do it, knowing that He gets all the praise and the honor, because He guided my feet to be able to connect up into that area He had for me. And if He will do it for me, He will do it for anyone. He will do it. That is what He wants. He wants, when you get busy, to have you collide up with your purpose. And in colliding up with that purpose, the joy that comes from it. And yes, you're going to still have to work hard. Yes, you're going to still have to be authentic in who you are. That means getting to know who you are, getting to know those things that you like to do, and more especially what you don't like. Getting to be making sure that you check yourself along the path, that one, you're not being judgmental of others in their quest and their walk to get where they need to be. Because along the way, people judged me. Oh, you're not going to college? When I went back from my high school reunion, everybody expected me to say I was a doctor, I was a lawyer, I was this, I was that, because you were top of the class. You were on top. I'm still on top. I'm on top doing what I love to do, being able to use my gifts and my talents in serving other people and building up stylists around me that can go forth and make a change just by touching people. I am on top. I am successful. And I praise God that He aligned me way back then to show me what He had for me to do. And so I say to you, God is not a respecter of person. We should not be either. We should not be judgmental. Please don't do that to other people. Allow others to be their authentic self and accept them for who they are and what God is placing in their hearts and in their minds and in their soul. And at the end of the day, my takeaway that I leave with you is that our lives should be a reflection of God. in everything that we do. The love that he shares with us, the way that he is not judgmental of when we fall down, the way that he loves us through and nurtures us and helps us to mold us into who he sees us and knows us to be. We should be doing that in our lives for others around us. And when we do that, then we are no respecter of people either. And that is pleases God in our walk. And that's my story.
All right, all right. So there you have it. And what I want to leave you with, that everyone has touched on, is that Romans 2:11. There is no favoritism with God. Bottom line, the world pits us against each other to chase the banana, to chase the carrot, to compete for positions and salaries. You don't have to compete with anything, because what's for you is for you. And if you follow your path and what God says, there is no favoritism with me. When I bless you, it's because you are in your lane.
Amen.
So you don't have to worry about being jealous of anyone, having strife with anyone. You didn't get the position, don't worry about it. It wasn't for you. Because what's for you is for you. I mean, when I walked through that parking lot, I was fed up. But God said, I'm not done working this thing out. So you just hang around a little bit longer and trust me and see what I do for you. And I want to leave you with that. No favoritism. Don't let anyone plant that seed in your head that you got to be in a clique, that you have to have what some folks call as an umbrella over you in corporate America. Your umbrella comes from God. Jesus Christ is your umbrella, and that's the best one you could have. Umbrella in corporate America is somebody, you can't get promoted unless you know somebody. Brown, whatever they call it. Deborah said brown nosing. They call it manage up now.
Oh, okay. New word.
New phrase.
Change the word, y'all. I'm sorry.
New phrase.
Nosing in my day.
Manage up. But what's for you is for you.
That's right.
No one else has your path. So we leave that with you. So please share the video at spiritualgleanings.com under the media tab, and give us your feedback. Always looking forward to your feedback. Constructive criticism, we take it all. So until next time, be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side.